In a small coastal town in the Philippines, where wooden houses leaned gently toward the sea breeze, a quiet boy named Liam Cruz lived with a heart full of unspoken dreams. Life in that tiny town was simple, but also heavy. Every day carried the weight of survival, enough food, enough work, enough hope to face tomorrow. Liam was only 16, yet carried a softness in his eyes that made him look younger. He never spoke much, never pushed himself forward. People often mistook his silence for weakness. But deep inside, something powerful slept, something even he couldn't fully understand. Every night, when the world outside slipped into darkness, Liam found a small corner behind their house, where the old bamboo trees whispered with the wind. That was where his voice awakened. A voice as warm, deep, and soulful as Elvis Presley. A voice born from pain, love, and quiet longing. He never planned for it. It simply came out of him, soft at first, then brighter, shaped by the echoes of old songs his mother played on a tiny radio when he was younger. Music had always been their escape, from bills, from hunger, from loneliness. But Liam never imagined it could be anything more. His mother, Rosa, a woman with tired hands and hopeful eyes, worked long days at a small market stall. She never saw Liam sing, until one night, when she returned home earlier than usual. She followed the faint melody drifting through the wind, unsure if it was coming from a radio. When she reached the backyard and saw Liam singing alone under the broken light bulb, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't interrupt him. She just watched. And in that moment, something inside her shifted, a mother's instinct recognizing a gift too rare to ignore. Liam had no idea she was there. He sang with the freedom he never felt during the day, unaware that this night would become the beginning of everything. Because for the first time, Rosa saw not just her son. She saw a boy carrying a spark strong enough to change both their lives. The morning after Rosa discovered Liam's hidden gift, the small house felt different. There was a quiet energy in the air, something unspoken but alive. Rosa kept watching her son with new eyes, not as a shy boy afraid of the world, but as someone who carried a silent power within him. But outside their home, life remained the same. The town ignored dreams. People worked, survived, repeated their days. Dreams were luxuries no one could afford. When Rosa gently mentioned auditions for America's Got Talent, Liam froze. The idea sounded impossible, almost ridiculous. He was a boy with no savings, no fancy clothes, no passport until recently. How could someone like him even stand on such a massive stage? But Rosa didn't back down. She remembered the voice from the night before. She remembered how it made her stop breathing. She knew what she heard. And she knew it didn't belong to a small town alone. Still, when the neighbors heard about their plan, their reactions were the same: raised eyebrows, small laughs, shaken heads. Some called it unrealistic. Others said the world outside was too big for a boy like Liam. No one believed in the dream except the two people who mattered most. With every discouraging comment, Liam shrank a little inside. But Rosa only grew stronger. She began selling old items from their home: pots, a broken electric fan, even a wooden table she'd kept since her wedding. The town watched her with confusion, sometimes pity, but she didn't care. A mother's belief is stubborn like that. They stood in long government lines for documents. They scraped together every peso they could. Some nights, they ate less so they could save more. And still, Rosa never complained. Liam felt guilty watching her sacrifice so much for a dream he wasn't even sure he deserved. But one afternoon, as they finally held the travel papers in their hands, Liam sensed something shifting inside him. It wasn't confidence yet, just a flicker, small but real. A hint that maybe he was meant to try. Their journey began at dawn. A bus ride to the airport. Long hours of waiting. A world far bigger than anything Liam had ever seen. He held his mother's hand the entire way, afraid but moving forward. Because for the first time, he wasn't walking toward a dream alone. He was walking with someone who believed enough for both of them. The audition venue was louder than anything Liam had ever experienced. Bright banners, rushing footsteps, scattered laughter, and nervous whispers filled every corner of the massive hall. To him, it felt like stepping into a world made of lightning, everything bright, fast, overwhelming. He clutched his number tag tightly, afraid someone would see his trembling hands. Around him were performers dressed in glittering costumes, carrying instruments he had only seen on TV. Some were practicing loudly, filling the room with power and confidence. Others carried expensive microphones, speakers, and polished outfits that sparkled under the lights. Liam felt small among them. Almost invisible. He tugged at the sleeves of his simple shirt, wishing he looked less ordinary. Wishing he had something, anything, that made him feel like he belonged here. But all he had was his voice, a voice he had barely shared with the world. Rosa stayed close beside him. She didn't speak much. Her presence alone was enough. Every time his fear rose, she would gently place a hand on his back, grounding him. Reminding him silently that he wasn't here by accident, and he wasn't here alone. But even with her strength, Liam felt a storm forming inside him, a storm made of doubt, fear, and the weight of expectations. He listened as other contestants practiced. Some had powerful high notes, others danced with perfect rhythm, and some had stories that drew cameras their way. Each performance made Liam shrink a little more, wondering if he could ever stand on the same stage. Hours passed. A long, slow countdown to destiny. When his number was finally called, his knees nearly gave way. He stared at the entry to the stage, a narrow hallway lit by soft, golden lights. It looked like the doorway to another universe, one filled with millions of eyes, bright judges' desks, and the pressure of a lifetime. He paused at the edge of the curtain, breathing in the hot stage air. It smelled like fear, opportunity, and dreams battling for space. Rosa watched him from behind, her hands clasped together as if sending him strength through the air. Liam swallowed hard, pulling in a breath that shook inside his chest. This was the moment before the storm. The breath before the leap. The second before a quiet boy from a small Filipino town stepped into a world much larger than himself. And no matter what happened out there, he knew one thing. He was finally ready to try. The bright stage lights washed over Liam the moment he stepped through the curtain. It felt like stepping into sunlight after a lifetime in the shade. The audience stretched into a sea of faces he couldn't fully see, only shadows, shapes, and a distant hum of anticipation. His heartbeat echoed louder than anything around him. The judges sat at their desk beneath the massive screens. Simon Cowell leaned back, arms crossed, wearing the expression Liam had seen countless times on TV, a mix of skepticism and mild boredom. The other judges watched with polite curiosity, waiting to be surprised, though not expecting much. Liam stood at the center of the stage, small under the towering lights. His clothes were simple. His shoes were worn. Everything about him looked ordinary in a place built for the extraordinary. But inside his chest, something steady began to rise. As the music cue flashed on the monitor, Liam closed his eyes for a brief moment. He pictured the backyard back home, the bamboo trees, the broken light bulb, the small space where his dream first breathed. He imagined his mother's tired smile, her hope, her sacrifices. That memory became his anchor. Then the music started. A soft guitar. A familiar rhythm. A classic tune tied to the man whose voice had shaped generations. The first note escaped Liam's lips trembling, unsure. But the second came firmer. The third soared deeper. And then, suddenly, the voice inside him broke free. Warm. Full. Timeless. A voice that carried the unmistakable soul of Elvis Presley. The entire room shifted. The crowd stilled. Simon Cowell, who rarely reacted so soon, lifted his head instantly. Liam didn't see the shock ripple across the judges' faces. He didn't see audience members leaning forward in disbelief. He didn't see the producers at the sidelines frozen mid-step. He was lost inside the song. His voice grew stronger, richer, echoing through the massive theater with a power even he didn't know he possessed. Each note filled the room like a warm wave, carrying the weight of dreams held too long in silence. The shy boy disappeared. And on that stage, for a few breathtaking moments, he became Elvis, not an imitation, but a soulful reflection shaped by struggle, love, and the quiet magic of a hidden gift. By the time he reached the high notes, the audience began to rise to their feet, moved by something they couldn't explain. Liam didn't see them. He was singing not for applause, but for the life he and his mother had fought to reach this point. This was not just a performance. It was a release. A revelation. And somewhere in the center of all that light and sound, Simon Cowell's expression changed, from surprise, to disbelief, to something softer, something rare. Because he wasn't just listening to a great voice. He was witnessing a moment. When the final note left Liam's lips, the entire theater fell silent, not the uncomfortable silence of uncertainty, but a stillness so deep that it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Even the echoes of the music seemed afraid to fade, as if they wanted to stay in the air a little longer. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Not the judges. Not the cameras. Not even the crowd packed into the towering arena. Liam lowered his gaze, unsure of what he had just done, unsure if the silence meant failure or something far more powerful. The bright lights blurred slightly as tears gathered in his eyes, though he didn't allow them to fall. He had come too far to break now. Then he heard something, a sound soft at first, somewhere in the distance. A single clap. Then another. And suddenly, like a wave crashing onto shore, the entire auditorium rose to their feet. The applause exploded around him, loud and unstoppable. People shouted, cheered, wiped tears from their faces. Some held their hands to their hearts as if they'd witnessed something sacred. The energy hit Liam like a warm wind, overwhelming and unreal. But the person he looked at first, was Simon Cowell. Simon hadn't moved during the applause. He still sat completely still, his eyes locked on Liam. But his face had changed, the usual sternness replaced by something rare, something genuine. His eyes glimmered with emotion he didn't hide, as if he couldn't. It was the kind of expression judges only had when they witnessed something unforgettable. Liam stood frozen, unable to speak, unable to breathe. He didn't need words. In that silent exchange with Simon, that unspoken acknowledgement, he felt everything he had ever needed. Validation. Recognition. Possibility. Backstage, Rosa's hands trembled as she covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. She had watched her son grow up invisible to the world, unnoticed, overlooked. But now millions were watching him. And they were seeing him the way she always had. For the first time, Liam felt the weight inside his chest lift. The world that once seemed too big finally felt like it had room for someone like him. Someone ordinary. Someone hopeful. Someone who carried his mother's dreams on his shoulders. When he walked off the stage, the applause still roaring, he wasn't the shy boy from a small coastal town anymore. He was the boy who made Simon Cowell freeze. He was the boy who made an entire world stand still. He was the boy who finally stepped into his own light.